Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Dawson County Board of Commissioners voting session. Today's Thursday, December 2nd, 2021. We appreciate those who are with us in attendance as well as those that are with us online. We'll start out with a roll call.
So you think you're
Okay. And you can see we're all here. We'll start out with our opening presentation. First up, we have proclamation recognizing the Dawson County third grade youth Tigers as the 2021 Mountain Football League Super Bowl champions. I'm going to go ahead and read the resolution and then turn it over to our park director, Matt Payne. It says Dawson County Board of Commissioners in recognition of Dawson County third grade youth Tigers Mountain Football League champions proclamation. Whereas the Dawson County third grade youth football Tigers consist of young men who live and attend school in Dawson County, and whereas they have worked diligently through the summer and fall seasons to prepare themselves for competition, whereas they have represented Dawson County wonderfully in not only athletic achievement, but with dignity and sportsmanship. They represent Dawson County in the Mountain Football League, which is an extension of the Mountain Athletic Conference. They had a wonderful season with only one loss, but fought hard throughout the playoffs and won the 2021 Mountain Football League third grade Super Bowl hosted here at our own Dawson County High School. Whereas the Dawson County Board of Commissioners does hereby commend the 2021 Dawson County third grade Tigers team for its talents, dedication, hard work, and congratulates the team for its accomplishments. And whereas the Dawson County Board of Commissioners does hereby bestow its best wishes for continued success in all future endeavors to these young men, and know that the future of football in Dawson County is very bright. Now, therefore, the Dawson County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim December 2nd, 2021 as Dawson County third grade Tigers Football Day. Do I have a motion for this proclamation?
so moved.
Motion by Commissioner Fawcett, seconded by Commissioner Satterfield. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that proclamation is approved 4-0.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, go down, get it. Come on over, boys. Come on over.
Talented group of boys right here. Yes. Very talented. Hey, y'all back on up a little bit, right up close to our post. Commissioner, if you're coming this way, son, you everybody take 2 steps this way. Jim, this way.
This way. There you go.
Big push-ups if we don't listen. You hold that right there.
Good job, guys.
So I have Coach Johnny Rogers present the trophy to our commissioners board and to our chairman, perhaps.
On behalf of the third grade Tigers, they'd like to present a championship trophy to the board of commissioners.
They will. I think they're gonna sit through this other open presentation and they're gonna go. Okay. All right. Good job, boys.
Yes.
We go on to our second opening presentation of the evening, creating a youth program for juveniles in Dawson County. John Cahill. John here. Coming up, John.
My name is John Cahill. I'm a cabinet maker. I live in Dawson County. Presently have 35 acres of property that we have under contract. And I would like to find a way to help our children in this county learn some trades and activities to help them in the future. This came to me a few years ago. My son got in trouble in Forsyth County. And I was very concerned about it. He never got in trouble in his life. And they put him through these programs that Forsyth County had. It was mind-blowing, to say the least. It changed his life. He went from a bad boy to a good boy because of these programs. And it made me see that there's hope. And right now, this country needs that hope. And I want to start something a little bit different than just a juvenile program. I want to create a youth program that can help people find better ways to change their lives and also help the parents and get them together at the same time. A program that is not just for the youth, but for the families. And these are the programs that we want to create on our property. Things like woodworking, farming, gardening, building greenhouses, everything that we can come up with. Have all of Dawson County support us and bring their trades to our activity to help these youths and families. I watched my son go from the wrong way and getting scared to the people that put in a lot of effort because they cared. And I think we could do the same thing for our kids here in Dawson County. My wife was supposed to be with me today. She had to work, but my success, Alan Cahill, is here. So that's the greatest thing for me.
Mhm, yeah.
I want everyone to be and contribute to this. I want everybody to help us make this happen. I got a flyer made for us. I'm going to leave them here for you guys. This is Angels in the Field. That's what I want to create for all these kids. Anybody from the age 18 and under, make a difference for us. I think that might help us. Biggest phrase, and this is the thing that I think everybody here understands. This country has gotten a lot of handouts in the last couple of years. I don't believe in handouts. I've been on my own and in my own business, and I've been doing my business for 40 years. I have never asked for a handout. I've always worked hands-on. Earn, you keep. That's what I believe in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd ask everyone to please stand for a brief invocation and pledge. You would bow your heads, please. Our dear gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this another day and for the many blessings of life. We ask for knowledge and wisdom. carry out the business of this great county. Anything that we accomplish will give you the honor and glory. In Christ's name, we do ask and pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, you may be seated. Okay. We'll move on to announcements. Does anybody have any announcements? Any announcements? Okay, next we'll move on to approval of minutes. First up, minutes of the joint meeting held on November 17th, 2021. That joint meeting was with the Long Range Planning Committee. Any additions or deletions? Motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Dooley,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Fawcett. Discussion.
I was not present, so I'm going to abstain from voting on this.
Okay. Everyone, please vote. That is approved 3-0 with one abstention. Next up, we have the minutes of the work session held on November 18th, 2021. Any additions or deletions? Motions.
Make a motion, we approve as presented.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Satterfield. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. Those are approved 4-0. Next up, we have the minutes of the voting session held on November 18th, 2021. Any additions or deletions? Motions.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Fawcett,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Dooley. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. Those are approved 4-0. Next up, we have the approval of the agenda. I do have two changes to the agenda. Will be number 5 and number 6 under new business. First being FY 2022 Legacy Link Addendum number 1 that was presented to you earlier today. And the other one be the local redistricting plan and resolution to endorse that plan. Those are the two additions. With those two additions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda with the two changes.
Motion by Commissioner Satterfield,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Fawcett. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. Agenda is approved with those two changes. No one signed up for public comment in this particular time. We'll move on to the public hearing. Today's public hearing is on the proposed short-term rental bed and breakfast establishment ordinance. We heard that and you've seen that presented to you. Is there any other information or questions the board has before I open up that public hearing? Okay. All right. So at this time, I'll open up the public hearing on the proposed short-term rental bed and breakfast establishment ordinance. Anyone who wishes to speak will have 3 minutes. So is there anyone here to speak on the proposed short-term rental bed and breakfast establishment ordinance? Come on up. And you will have 3 minutes. Please give us your name and your address and sign in right there on the form, please.
My name is Barbara Smart and my address is 66 Holly Drive, Dawsonville, Georgia. And I'm here representing the Country Place neighborhood. It's a small community right behind Chestatee. In fact, you have to go through Chestatee to access our properties. Excuse me. And 6 of my neighbors are here with me today, but I do have proxies from 24 other of my neighbors that I can be here to speak with them. I'm their unofficial mayor because nobody else would take the job. So, and I'm here to speak on the ordinances. We do have copies of that, which I have distributed to my neighborhood. The reason I'm here is because this summer a house sold right down 2 houses down from me, and they turned it into a vacation rental by owner. We had trouble all summer long with the people that were renting. And it disturbed not only ourselves, but our neighbors. One of our neighbors became very frightened with some of the behavior that was going on in this vacation rental by owner, Airbnb, whatever you want to call it. So in reading over the ordinances, there were several things that we wondered if we could add to strengthen that, those ordinances. And I'm not sure exactly how that works. But Sharon Fawcett has been very nice in hearing a lot of our complaints over the last several months in the summer and everything. And I really appreciate and thank you for doing that, Ms. Fawcett. And so some of the things that we had hoped would be possible would be the reduction of a 3-year permit to a yearly permit. I believe on business license that you have to do it every single year. And this is a business that's being run in our community, which is another issue. And I'm not sure how that would go, but we are a residential community and we've got a commercial business bringing in different people, strangers into our where we live and all of those things. We wondered if there's a possibility of adding a regulation or rule that would require a certain amount of acreage for an Airbnb to be placed on. Restrictions possibly on the use of foul language, which became a real problem with 2 of the renters that were not, 2 groups of renters that was there. Restrictions on the number of boats that can be put at a dock. There's this one on Holly Drive is a new vacation rental by owner, but there's another one on Honeysuckle that last summer we had a real problem. They had so many boats in the cove.
Stop for a second. All right, so that's your 3 minutes, but the board willing to give her a couple more
Yes.
minutes to finish up
Yes,
her
we need to
things.
hear
Go right ahead.
Thank you. I'm trying to talk fast.
Go ahead.
You're fine.
Okay, restrictions on the number of boats that are at a dock because last summer there was some down the street at this vacation rental by owner that they had so many boats in the cove, you could not pass in and out of the cove to get to other docks that were there. Should they not be under the same regulations as hotels and motels with exit signs, evacuation signs, smoke detectors? You know, is there a requirement that they have increased liability insurance since they are renting to people? So those are some of the things, you know, that we came up with that we thought would be a possibility. Oh, could we add a requirement that an Airbnb where you had to rent it for at least 7 days? These people that come in for 2 days or 3 days just throw these huge parties, and it becomes very disruptive to our neighborhood. Our neighborhood only has 48 homes, I believe is the number that we have right now. And it sits on a cove and it's quiet and it's nice. But the 2 rental properties that are there, short-term rental properties, have presented all kinds of problems. And we didn't know exactly how to handle that this summer. So I know that another one of my neighbors sent you guys an email asking that the restrictions on the ordinances, the rules and regulations that are out there be strengthened so that they have some teeth in them. Because I realize that we don't have covenants in our neighborhood, so we can't keep them out. But certainly we would like some strength in the rules and regulations and possibly to add several others. And I don't know if I assume that you guys have looked at Forsyth and Hall counties and what their rules and regulations are. And I have no idea what those are, but I think that Dawson County, especially for those of us that are on the water, on the lake, are having issues with it. And I really don't want any more of them opened up in my neighborhood.
I
quite
know we
frankly.
looked at Forsyth. Did we look at Halls? And
Ours is modeled after several other communities. Our
And
counties
not
that
just-
represent other communities, and they've been to this before.
okay.
Do you have any, did I miss anything?
May I speak?
You can come after her, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Just give us your name and address.
My name is Dale Smart, and my address is Holly Drive, number 66.
Okay.
And I'm hoping it still is after what I have to say.
Hope you're not contradicting your wife.
It's hard to say. You're gonna dish me?
That should get really interesting.
Okay, I'm filling in your part.
Oh, okay.
We got
She covered
scared.
everything except just a couple of things that I can think of, and one most important. Typically, when these houses are rented for a weekend, it is a lot of people there. And there's limited parking at all of the houses there. And so they end up parking on the street. Our streets are not regulation streets. The width it was built by, they were built by a private owner when he developed Don Stevens. And the roads are really not wide enough, and they're our roads. So we've repaved them. We've paid to come out of pocket to take good care of them and everything. But they're not terribly wide. And if you park a lot of cars in it and a fire happens down the street, there's no way that the fire trucks can get through there to get to it. So that's one of my concerns. And the other concern is, and I'm sure I'm gonna miss most, but people who come to the lake and are not lake dwellers or lake boat people are dangerous. They don't understand what they need to do when docking a boat, when this past, one of the first weekends that the house next to us was rented. Young girls were taking babies out on these paddle boards into the middle of the cove and without life jackets on. And I'm talking about babies. And of course, as soon as I saw that, I started getting things ready to get my boat out and go after them if I had to, because I don't know what skills they have, but I can't imagine that they had much doing that kind of thing. And that is, and that type of thing didn't happen just once. So we're scared for our community, of course, hurting the value of the community, but we're also scared for health concerns and safety concerns. So we'd ask you to please consider that as well. And if there's any questions or you want to hear any sordid stories, we'll share.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak on the proposed short-term rental bed and breakfast establishment ordinance? Come on up. Give us your name and your address. You'll have 3 minutes. If you need longer, you can request that of the board.
Okay, sir. And I've got copies of my comments for everyone. I can
Okay.
hand them to you when I'm finished.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Frankie Elliott. I'm with the 400 North Association of Realtors, and my address is 5784 Lake Forest Drive, and that's Atlanta 30328. First of all, thank you all very much for allowing us this opportunity to talk with y'all tonight about this ordinance. I'd like to just kind of go through some of the issues or concerns some of our members have on it. And what we would like to request is that there just possibly be a postponement for the final decision on this to be in January as opposed to tonight. Overall, the ordinance is fairly balanced in our opinion in terms of what's required, but there are a few things that, in our opinion, may have unintended consequences, and just also cleaning up some language to make sure that the ordinance can be enforceable by the county and also make it easier for property owners to comply with what's required. So some of the concerns that we think would probably be worked out with staff or with the county attorney in looking at this is we can start with section 1, or rather section 3501, the definition section. Under the definition of what determines a short-term rental, there's a minimum night stay of 2 nights. We would prefer there not be a minimum requirement. A lot of folks that come to short-term rentals or vacation rentals may only stay 1 night. So we don't want to prohibit the ability of people to do that, or for property owners to rent their homes out for just 1 night. Also, under that same definition section, when you look at the term for short-term rental agent or bed and breakfast agent, there is a term used, shall be legally responsible. Several of our members are very concerned about what that means, and we just like some clarification. Is that different than what's required further in the ordinance that the owner or the agent be responsible for? And the term legally responsible is just somewhat concerning. So we would just like to maybe have some more definition of what that is, or possibly clean that language up. Application for permit, in this, it asks for that if the owner's information, which is, identify the individual's name, their address, email, that's fine. Further on in that section, it also talks about if the owner is not a natural person, but rather is a corporate owned or LLC or something like that, it requests information for all the directors and all the officers. What we would like to see is have that changed and simply be the managing partner or the managing principal, because I think the idea is you all want to be able to get a hold of an individual, be able to reach out, touch somebody, or be able to talk to somebody. As you all know, several of these properties are owned by LLCs or corporations, and the whole board of directors, I'm not sure there's any benefit to doing that. Plus, it's somewhat an invasion of privacy for that information to be public record. But asking for the principal or the managing director is, in our opinion, a lot more appropriate in that case. It further in section 30-505, the grant or denial of application. This section here talks about that a permit can be denied or revoked if the owner has had issues at other properties, and we think those should be kept separate. There'd be several reasons why there might be code enforcement issues at other properties that don't fall underneath that. But if each address is going to be required to pay a separate fee and a different permit fee, then those properties should be kept separate, and the violations on one property shouldn't really be detrimental to the property, in other words. And plus, there's also additional language further in the ordinance that requires the property owners to keep up or to make, the whole process if somebody's been cited or they've had code enforcement issues. We just don't think one should be a total across the board revocation or denial. Also, we think the language under that section, subsection 2, the property
Okay,
is
hold on a
not
second.
current.
Hold on a second. Willing to give her some more time? Okay,
Yes,
go ahead.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. Further, where it talks about the property is not current on its property taxes, we prefer that to say that they be past due, because there's always that window of time where, where the bills are sent out and you've got, 30, 60 days to pay that. We prefer the language is to say that taxes have to be past due before that could be a reason why they would be denied an application or permit for short-term rental ordinance. Also, under maximum occupancy, that section where it talks about overnight occupancy, we would prefer, and I apologize, I didn't have time to really research this. I'm not sure what your noise ordinance calls for. If noise requirements change at a certain time of the evening, we would just like to maybe see that overnight occupancy number be at 10 p.m. and not, 11 p.m. and not 10 p.m. Certainly for weekends, and maybe there's an idea of looking at a different time if it's a weekday versus it's a weekend or a holiday. There might be some different language that we could look at for that. And then finally, the parking requirements. I did have a chance to look at your residential development requirements. Under that particular development code, you all require a minimum of 2 parking spaces per residential unit. There's no recognition or acknowledgement or requirement for there be a parking space tied to a particular bedroom. We would like that to be considered as part of this. I think there's an assumption that if there's 4 bedrooms, that there's going to be 4 adults in each of those bedrooms, and each of those adults are going to have a particular car. And that's quite frankly has not been the experience of our hosts or our property owners. Generally, you'll have families in there and they tend to drive together. You may have two individuals with a car, but I think rarely are you going to have number of cars per bedrooms. We would prefer to see it something similar to your code that, you know, there's other jurisdictions that if it's a 3-bedroom or less, it's 2. If it's a 4-bedroom or more, it's 3, or alternative option for that third parking spot. You know, to our experience has been, there's far more concern with owner occupied or long-term rentals that have multiple adults and teenagers that have cars, that those cars can't fit on a pad or can't be off street. But we do agree the parking needs to be off street. We just don't want to see property owners be denied to do this because they have a 4-bedroom house and they can only fit two cars or something like that on there. Those are the main ones. There might be some other just tweaking on language for it, but that would just basically be some of the concerns. And we just thought if we had some time to meet with staff and work with over, you know, by January, we could bring something back that I think would be a good ordinance for everyone, particularly for the county to be able to enforce it. I think that's ideally what y'all want to be able to do. You want to be able to, when there is a problem, have the means to enforce it and be able to contact the owners. I'll be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman, if anyone has any.
Thank you.
You want me to sign this?
Yes, please. Anyone else here to speak? Come on.
Hi, my name is Sue Wells, and I'm a member of the 400 Board of Realtors. And I've been in real estate about 13 years and been a member of the 400 Board the whole time. I'm currently a member right now. I don't agree with what she's just said, and I have many friends that are realtors that wouldn't agree with what she's saying. So I wanted to make sure you knew that all realtors don't feel the same way. I live on 10 Laurel Trail North, which is in the Country Place subdivision that they were talking about. I'm at the end of the road and we're on the lake. The big thing, my biggest thing is we have had a beach rental, our family has for many years. And even at the beach rental, we were not, it was in Florida, but we were not allowed to rent less than 5 days. And the reason I'm really against a 1-day rental or a 2-day rental is our rental rate is about $650 a night. And if you can come in and have a party for 1 day for $650 a night, and you get 3 or 4 families to share that, then you're gone before we've been able to call the LLC or call anyone that owns the property or do anything about it. All we can do is call the police if they're noisy. And we live in a neighborhood right outside of Chesty. All of Chesty's functions have to be ended by 10 p.m. because of the noise ordinance for the Chesty people. I think 10 p.m. is just more than reasonable, be it a weekend, holiday, or any other time. We do have children and families. I don't have any children, but some of the people living around these homes do, and we really need to be concerned about that. I really think if we had a 3-day rental or 5-day rental or more, we could take care of most of these problems. But a 1-day rental just opens it up to come in and party down and walk away. And I don't think that's the way to go at all. The biggest thing with being on the lake is most lake properties are septic, and the occupancy is determined by the septic and how much the septic property can use. So that's a big thing to consider in most of this. And we have had people, the property on our street requires 8 people for septic purposes. And we've had more than 8 people stay in the home over the summer, more than once. And since our road is a private road, we do feel like we pay to have it paved, we clean it, we do everything we have to do because it is a private road in Country Place, both of Country Place, and parking on the road requires us to have it, the wear and tear of the road, and the residents have to pay for that at that time. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else here? Come on up. Give us your name and your address. Please sign in. You'll have 3 minutes. If you need more, you can ask that of the board.
My name is Bob Littell, and I'm representing Big Canoe. We have 2,700 and going on almost 2,800 homes now. We have a public service crew in our neighborhood that we can call when there are disturbances. But frankly, our concern was the enforcement, since our public service has no way to actually arrest anyone and they have no right to carry a weapon. But I am just thrilled with the ordinance as it is drafted. There's no such thing as a perfect ordinance. But we think that once again, by reporting disturbances, there is provision in the ordinance for multiple disturbances to actually have that person denied a permit on renewal. So I, once again, commend you on the ordinance, and we're comfortable and we'll work with it in any way we can. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yeah, I think we got two.
Good evening. My name is Scott Welchel. I am the Governmental Affairs Chair for the Georgia Association of Realtors and represent all 55,000 members across the state. Short-term rentals is something that's been kind of at the top of the list of things that we discuss on a weekly basis and with our lobbyists, January through April, when the legislators are in session. We worked diligently with Forsyth County to hash out all of their concerns and the constituents, and we worked very, very hard. And so what I ask is that you postpone this until January so we can meet with staff, meet with you guys, maybe individually, and work some of these issues out. You know, a lot of this involves personal property rights. And there's a lot going on down at the state, down at the Capitol that we're working on. But we just asked for a postponement for this until January, where we can meet with you. I'll be happy to take any questions since I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Christine Torrey, and I live in Dogwood Meadows, which is 282 Poplar Trail. And Mr. Satterfield, I just sent you an email this evening with my concerns, not until 5 o'clock. I apologize, but that's the, didn't get notice until recently. I would just ask my Dawson County neighbors to not judge all short-term rental owners by your experience. If I had that experience, I would be horrified. I'm a short-term rental owner, and we don't allow parties. We live on the property, and we closely control who rents our property. I'm here because I have a few concerns about the ordinance that's been proposed. First, let me say we also live on the lake. We live at the end of a cul-de-sac, at the end of a private road. It's very quiet in our cove. And so I totally understand what they are saying. My husband and I got into the short-term rental business so that we could have some extra retirement income. So he wouldn't be chained to downtown Atlanta for the rest of our older years. So I have some concerns that I raised in my email that I want to some questions more so that I want to ask. In section 3505A, this refers to the notice that's going to be sent to adjoining property owners. And so my questions are, does that apply to the initial application and the renewal application, or just the initial application? All right, secondly, can the adjoining property owners oppose the short-term rental? If you're giving them notice, what's the purpose of the notice? Is it for them to say, I'm opposed to this? That's not spelled out in the proposed rule. I'd just like those questions answered. Okay, my second point, section 305C, number 3 deals with the granting or denial of the application. Okay, when we first launched our rental back in 2018, we were told that there was a complaint. We were told the county showed up and said that there was a complaint. We were never told what the complaint was. Still to this day, I do not know the nature of that complaint. I mean, we've never had a party. We've never allowed people to park on the street. So we still don't know. Owners have a right to know what the complaint is and have a right to refute that complaint. So the language says that if the owner has a history of complaints, what does that mean? That's ambiguous. Is that 2 complaints? Is that 10 complaints? What does that mean? And this section further goes on to say that the permit administrator has the sole good faith discretion to define history of complaints. This is a great deal of authority that's being conferred on a person who's not an elected official, making decisions for people like us. And then section 3508 parking. So we have a 2-bedroom unit, and I'd like to echo with what one of the realtors said. Most people that come are a family, and they're coming in a single vehicle. The kids aren't driving, so I'm not sure of the underlying reason for 2 spaces per bedroom. That doesn't seem realistic based on my experience as an owner. Most of our renters only bring 1 vehicle. I totally understand that we don't want to allow street parking. I totally get that. But the number of spaces, I think, is a little too much. We provide 2 spaces. We have that, but it's really only been necessary very rarely. All right, and section 3512.
Y'all want to give her a little more time? Okay, go ahead.
All right,
Go ahead.
thank you, I appreciate that. 512 refers to the guest rules. It's specifically number 5 deals with campers and RVs at the rental. So we have an RV pad on our property. We have 2.5 acres. And when we bought the property, there was nothing on the property. We put an RV pad there. We put an RV hookup, power, water, septic, so that we could live in the RV on the property and supervise construction, which actually worked out really well. So we have an RV pad, and when our family from out of state comes to visit us, they hook their RV up and stay on our property for a few days, okay? Under this section, it seems to me that would not be allowed. Okay, we've never charged or rented out the RV pad. It's just something that we make available to family. And then secondly, regarding this section, we're going to be retiring in the near future, and we would like to buy a recreational vehicle. Does this mean we cannot park our RV on our own property? So I just would like some clarification on that. So as residents of Dawson County, I really appreciate everything that you're doing to protect our investment. But I think there's some unanswered questions, and I'd be happy to talk with other residents and try to work things out. Because like I said, not all short-term rental experiences are like what they've had in their neighborhood, and I don't blame them for being upset. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Quick question. As an owner, I think you're the first owner that spoke.
Yes.
Are you saying that you want complaints? Like if the county receives a complaint, you would want them to call you as the owner during that complaint process?
Absolutely. I believe I should know what that complaint is so I can refute it. If my neighbor's just mad at me for another reason,
Right.
and doesn't, and this is a way of getting back at me, I should be able to refute that.
But like if it's 10 o'clock at night, you want them to call you, not call code enforcement. is
Well,
what
I'm
you're
not saying that. I'm saying if they file a complaint, that's fine. If they want to call, yeah, that's fine. I have to be, if I'm the registered agent, then I would expect that,
Right.
absolutely. But if a formal complaint is filed, that's what I'm talking about. I should be notified of that.
Sure.
And in my case, a complaint of some type was filed. This was back in 2018 when we started. I still don't know what that complaint was. So,
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
all right.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Come on up. Give us your name and your address. Please sign in.
Holly Barrett, 72 Keith Evans Road, Dawsonville. Okay, so I'm a realtor. I specialize with investors, specifically buy and hold short-term rental and long-term rental. I also am a short-term rental owner. We have 2 in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and 1 in Chattanooga, and we would like to, in the future, develop one here in Dawsonville. We actually just bought some land here. So I wanted to start by saying there's a housing affordability crisis going on. So another side of this is having a short-term rental really helps, especially younger people who want to get in on property ownership. It definitely helps offset the mortgage cost. So there's another kind of aspect of this that's helping people just afford to live and bring another types of revenue. So the 2-night minimum, I won't belabor it. I know it's been touched on quite a bit. In Hot Springs, Arkansas, we do not have a minimum night stay requirement. They do have an ordinance, by the way. So there's one in place, but there's no minimum stay. If they came and said you cannot have 1-night stays, it would seriously hurt my bottom line. I have a lot of 1-night passer-throughs that fill up my midweek, and it seriously helps me and it helps my cleaning staff because I pay them the same amount to clean a 1-night as I do a 1 week. So it's helping their business grow as well. I also, AirDNA, airdna.co is a data, it's a website, you can go to it. It pulls data from both Airbnb and VRBO. Dawsonville currently has 108 active between the two, I suppose. What I wanted to touch on there is if you look on that website, you'll see there's a very small, I can't remember the exact percentage, it may be 1 or 2%, it's tiny, of active short-term rentals in Dawsonville that actually allow 1-night stays. So the vast majority are 2 and 3 night. And I say that because it's kind of a non-issue. So for us as owners, I feel that should kind of be, the ball should be in our court on deciding, whether we want to do the 1-night or not. Skipping on to the registered agent, again, it's been touched on. Add a little color on this. The registered agent, I think there might be some confusion on that terminology. I think of it as a local contact for people like me who are remote with short-term rental elsewhere. Bless you. My registered agent is also my maintenance man. And if my issue with the verbiage is the legally responsible for the guests. If I told him that he was legally responsible, I think that would really scare him. I think he would stop being my agent, right? So I think the buck stops with the owner, or perhaps a property management group if they were using that. But again, I think the buck stops with the owner. The owners are who would be legally responsible. So just some clarification on that would be helpful. I also would be requesting the postponement to mid-January so we could kind of deep dive some of these items. One of the issues I have is that when I heard about this proposal, I reached out to every Airbnb, short-term rental owner I could. Not one of them had heard about this happening. I've since created a Facebook group to create awareness so that they could be a part of it. But I think there's a lot of them who have not been able to be here tonight who would still like to be a part of this discussion so that we could all come up with something. Overall, I think it's a fairly reasonable ordinance. It's just a few little items. I wanted to add on to the RV question, just because we too have an RV, and that's a huge thing right now. I'm sure you guys are aware. So many people sold their homes or living in RVs. I heard someone say the other day that RVs are not meant for full-time living. I don't know if that's even true anymore. The new RVs are built so well. You go to a campground, you can't even get a site. I mean, people are literally living in RVs all over the place. There's a huge need for RV spots. So I think it'd be awesome if we would allow for RV pads to be rented out and other alternative ways of, again, just offsetting our mortgage, our monthly mortgage. So with that, I will yield, and thank you so much for hearing me.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up. Got one coming from the back. And then you can come next. Come on.
George Walker. I live at 5655 Steve Haven Lane in Cumming, and I am a short-term renter owner in the incorporated portion of Dawson County. So technically, the ordinance doesn't apply to me, at least not yet, right? And so I wanted you guys to know that the bulk of my people who are staying with me are coming for weddings for the venues that you have in Dawson County. They're coming to go shopping at the outlet mall. They're coming for the tourism, the wineries that are in the area. and to attend churches. You have some large churches in the area, and they're visiting relatives. I'm strictly against partying of any kind, and if I suspect any of my guests who are going to be partying, I don't allow them to stay here. And I've rejected many a one-night stay for that very reason. The websites have gotten much better about cleaning that up. I know there's been some stuff in the news, but they've been pretty strict about getting rid of the partying that's taking place. I can't speak to their particular issues, but I'd hate that one or two properties be representative of the entire group when there's more than 100 people doing it in the county. My issues with the actual ordinance are the not less than 2 nights and the number of parking. The most families are 2 adults and 2 to 3 children, and that's going to represent 1 vehicle. So, that would occupy anywhere from 2 to 3 bedrooms. I would hate for us to be so restricted to require 3 automobiles parking just for a family of 5, right? So just something to be taken into consideration. I yield back the rest of my time, and thank you for my
Thank
consideration,
you.
my ideas.
Come on.
My name is Susan Purr, and I live at 38 Laurel Trail South in Dawsonville, and it's the area below Chastity. And I just really have one comment. A lot of the realtors that have come up here, I wonder how many of them have an Airbnb or Verbo right next to their house. A lot of it is about them making money. For us, this is our daily lives. This is about us having to deal with something just because we live on the lake. I think that I would certainly be against 1 or 2 night rentals. I just really feel that there's got to be a balance. I understand that people should be allowed to be able to rent their houses, but I do think that there needs to be restrictions. Some areas, like the people that they weren't realtors, but they actually live next door to that. How many of these people that own them live next to them and would be able to control those things? I would say the majority is not. So that's just a comment I want to make. We live there.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak on proposed short-term rental bed and breakfast establishment ordinance? Anyone else?
Chairman, I just have a question of anybody, I guess realtors that know this stuff. I know there's a realtor disclosure form. In that disclosure form, has it been updated where it's required to disclose that there's a Airbnb in a vicinity or anything like that? Is that part of a document? Okay. So you could, as a realtor, you could sell a house right next door to Airbnb and they wouldn't know it until after they bought it and moved in. Correct. Okay.
Okay. All right. Anyone else before I close the hearing? Yes, let me close the hearing first. All right, so at this time, I'll close that hearing. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'd like for staff to come up. I need a couple of questions asked too.
Okay, come on up, Ms. Sharon.
And I'll make some comments that I've kind of wrote down.
Okay.
I guess on application, because we're here and we get phone calls from where there's 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, 6 bedrooms. Any part of the application, do they give us a set of plans or what that house was zoned for or built?
Yes,
Okay.
we're gonna get copies of the environmental health initial
Yeah.
permit, or we will have it on in our
No, they're
data.
turning, sometimes they're
when we-
turning 1 bedroom into 2.
Right, and we'll have
Putting
some
bunk beds
basic,
in there, sleeping 6 people in there.
we'll have basic information from them building the home if it's been built since 1980, after 1985.
So
We'll
y'all
have a-
have what's zoned for? The single
Yes,
family?
all of that. The application is probably the bulk of this ordinance because we're gonna, and that's why we have it scheduled, we have it in the draft that every 3 years you go through the whole application process. You're still gonna need a business license every year, and if there are violations, we don't have to wait 3 years. The permit can be revoked. So the permit process is every 3 years. The renewal is a business license every year. And the compliance issues are constant.
And that's
I mean,
common with any business.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
if
We
it's
just
a
didn't want to put.
alcohol business, they've had complaints. We can,
Exactly. We just didn't
deny
want to
it.
put the applicants and staff through that full review annually because hopefully things don't change.
Another question they brought up about campers and camp pads and 2 septic tanks. How many septic tanks can we have on 2 acre lot? In zoning?
There may be questionable as to whether that activity was permitted. We do not allow RVs.
Because it's one per lot.
Mhm.
Okay. I just,
No, I mean.
I knew that was in our ordinance. I just wanted to
Yeah,
clarify that.
yeah.
One of the things I know there was a question about RVs and stuff like that. I mean, people can have an RV. They just can't live in it.
Correct.
Is according to our current ordinance. Right.
Yeah, because like I said, the 2 acre lot, I don't think you can have 2 septic tanks. Chairman, as far as noise ordinance, I mean, we've had issues before where we had ordinances that overlapped other ordinances and we talked about, I mean, I'd love to see our noise ordinance stay as a noise ordinance, not have 2, not have one for this zone and one for this zone, because we've got in trouble with that before, looking at different ordinance to come up with the permit. Boats, I don't think, as far as the Corps engineer, I don't think we can regulate how many boats are on the water. I mean, I don't think as far as the county, we can regulate that. I hate that because if we put that in the ordinance, the Corps is still the one that's gonna have to regulate it if it's on the water. We got a boat. I mean, yeah, we got a boat. But
Emergency boat.
we got an emergency boat. Cars, I'd still like to see the cars in the driveways. I don't think we ought to have any cars parked on the road.
Yeah.
That's a safety concern.
That's part of it, yeah.
I mean, I just, if it's set up for 2 cars, then you can have 2 cars in there. If it's set up for 1 car, you can have 1 car in there. So I don't want any cars parked on the roads. We've had that problem before with emergency services trying to get in. Kids run off the road because one lane shut down. We had to get a kid over close to y'all subdivision. It was in a golf cart and one lane was shut down and he went off the bank. I think that's the only concern. The zoning. Dude, I know we have businesses run out of residential homes now,
Home office.
home offices. Since this is considered a business, does that change the zoning or do they have to change the zoning of that residential property? Is that
No,
legal?
that-
I guess that's a legal question.
That's what this ordinance is doing. It's almost like a special use.
Yeah, Sharon's exactly right. So no, they would not be changing the zoning. And many times it's, these homes that are being rented are within platted subdivisions. So they couldn't
Yeah.
necessarily, change what's. in
Unless they
platted
come
subdivision.
before us for a hearing.
Right, right. So this is a separate permitting process that would allow sort of like a home occupation permit for these particular short-term rentals.
I think somebody brought that up. I want to clarify that. That's all I had, Chair.
Yeah, a lot of things that Tim addressed, I had listed as well. On the number of night stays, there seems to be some push and pull on that from both sides of the equation. I would assume that majority of these party events that you have experienced were weekend events. So if we could potentially look at on a weekend that there is a minimum requirement of say 3 nights, and then during the week, Monday, whatever, however we define it, 2 nights or something like that, then that might mitigate parties happening. Just throwing that out there as an idea. The lady with the Board of Realtors mentioned, legal responsibility, better definition. I'm okay with making sure that we have that really defined. Listing a managing owner, I'm okay with that. parking, definitely agree with Tim. We can't have on street parking. How we define that, I've heard two different conversations of, is it by the number of bedrooms you have? And then everybody seems to say that owns one says, well, we never have parties. So we always have just a family that winds up being one person. So if that's the case, then you shouldn't have any problems with restrictions that kind of allow us to help you prevent parties and people parking on the streets. Noise, I agree with Tim. I mean, I think that the 10 o'clock is, I've got kids and I don't believe me, if I can get in bed by 10 o'clock without other issues, that's good. There was. Yeah, the foul language restriction, I don't see, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I don't see how we can, that would be a complaint and that would be addressed, I think. A complaint comes in and I ask the question of somebody that owns one, do you want us to call you at 10 o'clock, at 11 o'clock at night? Or do you want our own code enforcement people to take care of it? And so I think that the way it's written now, I believe it says that we will call and maybe somebody can clarify, we will call the owner of the unit. Is that correct?
Well, there's a designated
Or whoever the designated person.
agent, right? So the
So-
designated agent would be contacted, which presumably that agent would keep record and share that with the owner.
Right. Right.
If it
But
rose to the level.
The neighbor that has the complaint, would they not call code enforcement outlet?
Well, that's a good point. So I don't think a complaint necessarily would always rise to the level of necessarily code going out and issue a citation. I think it could be one of the other, or it could be both. I think many times if you get the noise complaints,
Right.
the reason we have this agent process is because we may not have code officers that are available to report out or to deal with something at midnight.
Right.
And so that's the idea, is there's someone that's supposed to be responsible for the property, to shut off the noise, turn off the music. And then it could rise to the level then of a violation and a citation the following day.
So it could be, if you're a hotel manager, you got somebody on site in that scenario that addresses complaints. And so they could address it, then it rose to a different level than code enforcement or law enforcement can get involved.
Right.
But there's somebody that is responsible for the property that would be engaged.
In real time. That's the point of that agent.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and there seems to be, I'm okay with taking, because there's one side that wants some strengthening to it, and there's other side that wants some clarification. So I would be okay with personally furthering some conversation with staff in order to try to look at ways to ensure that we're addressing both sides of it, to make sure that we've got an ordinance that we're going to make everybody mad regardless. We're not going to make everybody here 100% happy. So it's our job to try to balance private property rights and those that live next door to these folks and those people that are selling these all day long. So I'm okay with giving it a little more time to clean up some of the language on it personally. And I would love to know if a realtor would really be okay if it was a requirement that they had to disclose that there is a VRBO. Would a realtor be okay with that?
Well, I think the people that are looking for a place to buy, that'd be due diligence to me. I would be quizzing it. I'd be asking about it myself.
Yeah, I would assume a realtor would not want to have to disclose that, and it's outside of the scope of this.
Legal for it, Miss Andy. There's a comment made to LLC, but with the Secretary of State, don't you have to list the owners, the principals, the parties? So that information is public knowledge.
Yeah, I don't think it's invasion of privacy to list.
Huh?
I do not think it would be an invasion of privacy to list the principals. of
It's
the
listed
company.
with the Secretary of State.
It's public record.
It's public record. So I mean, I think application, because that's the thing we've run into before, is trying to run down the person that owns it. You need to know the owner's name or the corporation.
This is a slippery slope, and I understand about people wanting to make money. But I'll never think it's right to disturb somebody's home where they live every day. And that's what these people have. I mean, it's just been a nightmare from what you've told me. I mean, if I could have got shingles, I would have had shingles. Just listening to y'all. But I know we can't dictate language, but I'm telling you, it was awful what you told me. And to be in your own home and just be tormented and disturbed, I don't think that's I don't think that's right any way you look at it. And I don't think even the realtors and all would be happy with that. But there's got to be a balance somewhere. And I know there are property rights and you're entitled to make money, but I'll never believe you're entitled to torment the people who, as you said, are there daily. You're there day in and day out, and you can't go anywhere else. So you've got to listen to this. And as far as me, I want things more restrictive after what I've been told from what's happened to y'all. And that's my opinion, but I think we've got a lot of questions that we need to iron it out and maybe strike a happy medium somehow. But somehow or another, there's got to be relief for people.
As far as the parking issue goes, how do we determine what a spot is for the requirements per the bedroom? Like, how is that? Can you speak to that, or?
They would just need to document on the plan, and of course, we could visit the site or pull a survey, that there is an area, and it can be gravelled as long as it doesn't interfere with the septic tank or anything, and it's not out of character with the neighborhood. But if you have some, like the one speaker had 2 acres, certainly a gravel area for parking, for overflow, or for that 3rd bedroom could be created. I mean, we're not gonna expect everybody to have a 4-car driveway or 4-car pad. Not that you couldn't, if you have the room on your property, you could certainly improve it, and that would be a selling point. But you know, a lot of properties would start off with a 2 drive. Most people expand once they do have teenagers, so we'll have some flexibility and common sense in reviewing the plans.
Right, and that's kind of what I was getting at with that. If you've got a home that's on the lake, that's on a smaller lot, you can only fit 2 cars there, but I would hate to have that as a restriction for them to apply for the permit because they couldn't get 4, because it would, you could limit the number of cars to 2, and it would limit the number of people in the house. I guess it's kind of what I was confused at, as to how that, if you've got a 4-bedroom house on a small lot, you don't need to be able to put a car per bedroom there. But if you've got it on 2 acres, then it could be allowed.
Right.
And I think there might need to be some flexibility with that in the ordinance.
Well, you would be licensed only then for the 2-bedroom bed and breakfast.
Okay, so even if you had 4 bedrooms, you could get the license for 2.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And now all of this information and what the marshal's office will do in just, random compliance or annual compliance is see what's on their posting. If we know it's a small lot, a small house, and it posts, 8 bedrooms, then they're in violation. They're advertising for something outside of their permit.
Okay.
There again, I go back to the initial permit to build that house. So, because they're gonna do a drawing of the driveway, the house, septic location, that's what they're gonna get approved on. If it comes back, y'all go back out there and there's gravel parking lot in front of the house in a neighborhood that's got parking in the driveway, not in front of their house.
And that would be a violation.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it doesn't fit their plan they applied for when they built the
Right.
rest.
And it's going to take some work on the part of staff. I mean, there's going to be, the marshal's office is going to come up with a system for compliance, and typically it'll be regulated. I assume there'll be, calls from neighbors, and we'll go out and take a look.
Right. Because I wouldn't want somebody that did have a 5-bedroom house on the lake, just gravel their whole front yard and,
Right.
to qualify
Right.
for parking too. So
Right.
it's just hard to get it balanced because
It is.
we've got such small lots on the lake. And then if you've got somebody that has a 2 or 5 acre lot, they've got a lot more, room to do it, and they may not even affect their neighbors as much.
Right,
So,
and we addressed that. We added almost an exemption for the number of bedrooms if you're on 5 acres or more.
okay.
It's unfortunate. I mean, I think the whole idea of short-term rentals has come about in the last 10 years and it's become more popular. I've stayed in them. A few bad apples is the reason why we're here today, is because we have complaints and we are disturbing neighbors. And the owners that are here tonight said, you know, they restrict theirs and y'all might manage yours. Excellent. But unfortunately, because there's other non-present owners that don't properly manage their properties is the reason why. If people just did what they should do out of respect for their common man, we probably wouldn't have any laws. But unfortunately,
do
we have
anything then.
to come up with a resolution.
And that's the ones that's not here, the ones that don't enforce it.
Right.
All right, so any more discussion? What's the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion that we table this for further discussion to review back and I don't want to go too far downstream, but let's put it back on the agenda for 2 weeks from now and then we can continue from there.
Okay. Motion to table until our next meeting,
Was that December
16th,
16th?
2 weeks.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines, seconded by Commissioner Dooley. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. It is tabled 4-0.
And thank you for everybody coming out, both sides of the equation, to
Yes.
give us your feedback. It's what we got to do. We got to have both sides of the equation and we'll do the best we can.
Okay. I will move on to unfinished business. We have consideration of request to update tax commissioners' resolutions. They were tabled from the November 18th, 2021 voting session. And I believe we have 4 of those. Ms. Davis, you want to talk about that?
Well, I'd be happy to introduce them, and our tax commissioner is here as well. If you have any questions, we have had this come through a work session previously, and we made some recommendations and worked with the tax commissioner on the language. And so what we are presenting tonight, in agreement with the tax commissioner, is the approval of 4 different resolutions. Would you like me to summarize
Please,
those?
just
Okay.
titles or whatever.
Yes. So, okay, the first resolution authorizes the tax commissioner to correct obvious legal or obvious clerical errors. I'm sorry, which is a good opportunity where there's, certain things that I think you know what I mean. Clerical errors. I think often it would be numbers are displaced or lot sizes or property things are just dispensed backwards or something like that. Something that's obviously just a housekeeping mechanism. So one resolution would authorize the tax commissioner to do that. A second resolution authorizes the tax commissioner to accept checks and payment. The third resolution authorizes the tax commissioner to conduct judicial in rem judicial sales. And the fourth resolution authorizes the tax commissioner to waive penalties and interest when the default giving rise to such penalties and interest was due to reasonable cause and not due to gross or willful neglect or disregard of the law. On each of these items, law provides for this authority to be granted to the tax commissioner. In some cases, the Board of Commissioners has the original authority, but we can grant that authority by delegation to the tax commissioner for efficiency of operations. There were 2 other resolutions that were addressed at the work session, which have been withdrawn. So we just have those 4 tonight.
Ms. Nicole, do you have anything to add?
Was more changed besides just the name? When you initially came through, you said we need to do this, to put your name on this. So were other changes, did you find other changes?
Well, like
needed?
one of them, it's already code section, so they were like, you really don't need a resolution. And it was one that we had on the books from previous, so that's why I had done it. But I mean, like I said, we don't need it. Honestly, because we're already following the rules on it. And then the other one, it already was one. They were kind of 2 the same and I think where the confusion, I had copied one from here that was on file and then one that was in our handout, and it's really the same thing. So.
Okay. Any other information needed? Thank you, ma'am.
So if these need your approval, we just simply need just a motion to authorize the adoption of these 4 resolutions.
Okay, we'll take them all together. Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion, we approve as presented.
Okay. Motion to approve 4 resolutions as presented by Commissioner Gaines.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Satterfield. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. That's approved 4-0. We'll move on to new business. First up, we have consideration of proposed butterfly oasis at River Park project. Rotary Club presented that. Very nice thing that they were going to do as continuation of the many things that they have done for improvements at some of our park areas. Any other information needed on that? Motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Fawcett,
Second.
second by Commissioner Dooley. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that is approved 4-0. Next up, we have consideration of a board appointment, Long Range Planning Committee, Steve Pollock replacing Tim Costley. Any other information needed? Motions.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Satterfield. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that is approved 4-0. Next up, we have consideration of a resolution concerning memorandum of understanding for opioid litigation settlement. Ms. Davis.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As you may remember, we signed on to this class action lawsuit that was filed some time ago, actually a couple years ago. And what the lawsuit was seeking to do with a large class of governmental units was to seek reparations against many pharmaceutical companies. There's a litany of various different defendants based upon opioids that were being sold and the crisis that was being created and the drain specifically financially on EMS and different aspects of our community and public services. We retained outside counsel who has handled this case for us on a contingency basis, meaning the county has not spent any money towards the prosecution of the case, but instead will recover monies if there's any successful recovery in this lawsuit. There has been a settlement, a potential settlement that's been reached in this class action. The case is actually pending in the Northern District of Ohio. So this is a national lawsuit. And there's been a tentative settlement of a collective $26 billion in settlement of these claims. We have been asked, and it's been recommended by our council, that we would approve opting into this settlement. We don't know how much money that our county will receive, unfortunately, at this time. But what we are told by our council is that they believe this is the best mechanism by which we can recover funds as the litigation proceeds. If we don't opt into this settlement, we could elect to continue. My guess is these lawyers might not continue for us, so we might have to consider retaining separate counsel. But if we continue, obviously the expenses are going to increase because at this point, there's not really been discovery to any great extent. And the time and effort based upon the county's input in the case is going to increase significantly as well. So any potential recovery could be diminished by the ongoing time period associated with continuing in the case. And I think that's a large part of the recommendation. Once there is a final settlement, the state of Georgia will receive 75% of the funds allocated by the national distribution. And then from there, counties and cities, other entities are then apportioned a basis of their recovery based upon certain factors and metrics that basically demonstrate who has the more serious opiate issues.
Council retained 75%?
No, state.
Oh.
The state of Georgia. No. So the state of Georgia. So the state gets that will be put into state program. And an important concept here is that these monies are all slated and required to be put back into remediation of the crisis. So it's not just something that can go in our general fund and we pave a road with. So the great majority will go to the state for purposes of state programming and state enforcement and so forth. So with all of that in mind, we've been asked to approve this settlement. The reason I say that it's a tentative settlement is because the defendants have opted and have an agreement that if not enough of the plaintiffs opt in, then they could decide not to go forward with the settlement. I think the idea there is if you've got 100 people suing you and only 10 want to settle, then they're going to be continuing with 90 and they will just opt out of settlement and continue with the case. But I think the report is that there's a large contingency of people that are opting in, and we believe that the settlement will go through. I can tell you firsthand, I've had several governments that have approved these documents already. They are asking to get this approved at this meeting because they have a deadline through the court process that's next week. So we should pass upon it one way or the other tonight.
Is there a downside to that?
There's really not. I mean, because we don't have a guaranteed amount of settlement, you could say, well, if I don't know how much money I'm getting, I don't want to settle. But the reality of that is then if we continue in the case against the recommendation of our lawyers, one, we may need to get new lawyers, or we may just not be able to continue because we don't have lawyers that want to pursue this for free on a contingency. Or two, as I mentioned, going the distance in this process. I mean, if this case were to go to trial, I mean, we're talking years and years out.
Oh, yeah.
At that point, by the time the lawyers take their fee, the expert witnesses take, all the expensive come out because we have to fund all of the experts and all of those things. And what's left for us would likely be even less than what we might be slated to get here in this settlement. So I don't really see a downside. And remember too, we have not put forth any funds in pursuit of the case. Yeah, so that's important as well.
If the settlement does fall through for some reason, does that preclude us from proceeding with the litigation?
No, if the settlement does not go through, then what will happen is we will absolutely continue on. Yeah, that everybody will be forced then to continue in the case.
Okay, so it's a pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we opt in with the settlement. I just want to go on record saying I hope that we put the money towards the stop of this. It affects a lot of families. We've seen it. I know the chairman's seen it. I've seen it. It's affected my family too. I'll go on record saying that. It tears a family apart. And young people, there's a lot of people dying from it. They're losing everything they got. So I would hope if we get a dime, we put that dime towards prevention of it.
And have to, I think. So that's good.
Excuse me, Commissioner Sadler, if I could offer one additional thing that might be attached to your motion, our esteemed clerk noted that we need to appoint someone in the resolution that we've been, or the document we've been presented. They've asked for us to appoint someone who would be the contact person with respect to the settlement. A lot of jurisdictions are appointing either the chair or the county manager. So if you could consider that and perhaps add that to your motion.
Amen.
Yeah, I'd make an amendment to my motion to opt it in with the settlement and appoint the county manager to be our point of contact.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristen.
I second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That's approved 4-0. Next up, we have ratification of amendment to FY 2022 budget. Miss Vicky.
Good evening. On November the 18th, we thought we had completed the process for the 22 budget. And the next day I came in and realized that we needed to make an adjustment. During some of the discussions, when I was trying to make calculations, I missed the $25,000 addition. So the total budget that was adopted was $57,281,168. What it needs to be is $57,339,342. And there's the 25,000 in there for the contingency, but also just went ahead and added in the 33,174 that you all approved after the fact for the tax commissioner. And that way it's all done at one time. It's all kind of clean. And so anyway, that's my request, that you would amend the total budget by
$58,174.
Does it make sense for us to go ahead and add that 6, which is unfunded required mandate that was presented to us tonight?
If that's the board's pleasure.
We have to do it. I mean, it's
Well, we have to do it.
unfunded mandate comes from state.
Not on that part. Not
Well,
on the bailiffs.
We probably need to wait till we actually vote on that
We need to
because we haven't
discuss
voted
that.
on that yet. So
Okay.
we'll do that. We can always add it later. All right, so ratification of amendment to the FY 2022 budget. What's the pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve by Commissioner Fawcett,
Second.
second by Commissioner Dooley. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that's ratified 4-0. Next, we'll move on to FY 2022 Legacy Link Addendum number 1. That was 20,000 additional funds. Any other information needed? Motion.
Motion approved.
Motion by Commissioner Satterfield,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that's approved 4-0. Next up, we have the local redistricting plan and resolution to endorse the plan. So you have that resolution. That was presented earlier. We need to get that in by the 10th. So any other information needed? Motions.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Fawcett. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that is approved 4-0 for the local redistricting plan and resolution to endorse. Okay. Change pages. No one signed up for public comment in this particular section.
No, sir.
And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you for your attendance, both in person and online.